It wasn't loud, no one shouted, no one gasped, but something happened in that room that no one could ignore, because in the middle of a high-stakes ranch auction, a man who never lost suddenly stopped bidding, and he didn't just pause, he lowered his paddle, slowly, deliberately, like he had just seen something that changed everything. The auctioneer froze mid-call. Going once. Silence. A chair creaked in the back. Dust floated in the sunlight, cutting through the old wooden windows. And one by one, every head in that room turned, not toward the banker, but toward the man standing near the entrance. He hadn't even been there a minute. No one saw him walk in. But suddenly, he was the only person that mattered. He didn't look like he belonged. Not in that room. Not in that moment. Dust-covered boots, oil-stained hands, a faded denim jacket that had been worn thin at the elbows. He looked like someone who spent more time under engines than under a roof. And in 1984 Montana, that meant one thing. He was a mechanic, not a landowner, not an investor, definitely not someone who should be standing in a room where thousands of dollars were being thrown around like pocket change. But he wasn't leaving. He just stood there, calm, watching, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. And that's when people started noticing something else. He wasn't looking at the crowd. He wasn't even looking at the banker. He was looking at the land papers, like he already knew them, like he had seen them before. And that's when the first whisper started. "Who is that?" No one answered, because no one knew. But the banker did something strange. He didn't ask. He didn't react. He just watched him, carefully, like he was trying to figure out a problem that didn't make sense. Because this auction had already been decided. The ranch was bankrupt. The land was dry. The soil had failed for years. Every serious buyer had already walked away, except one, the banker, and everyone knew how this would end. It always ended the same way, until it didn't. His name was Caleb Turner, and if you asked around town, most people would tell you the same thing. He's a good mechanic. That was it. No land, no money, no reputation beyond fixing things other people had already given up on. Old trucks that wouldn't start, tractors that hadn't moved in years, machines people called dead. But Caleb never used that word, because to him, nothing was truly dead, just misunderstood. And that's exactly how he saw the ranch. But no one else did. To everyone else, that land was finished. Rain hadn't touched it properly in years. Crops had failed season after season. The last owner had tried everything, and lost everything. That's how it ended up here, auctioned off, forgotten, and quietly claimed by the banker, like every other piece of land that stopped producing. But Caleb had been there before, not as an owner, not even as a worker, just passing through, fixing a broken tractor months earlier. And while everyone else saw dry soil, he saw something different. Something small, something easy to miss. But once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. The land wasn't dead. It was resting, recovering, waiting. But waiting for what? That's what no one else understood. And that's why no one else bid. But Caleb did. The first time he raised his hand, a few men laughed, quietly, but enough, because to them, this wasn't confidence, it was ignorance, a mechanic trying to play in a game he didn't understand. But Caleb didn't react, didn't even look at them. He just kept his eyes forward, focused, still. And that's when the banker hesitated, just for a second, so small most people missed it. But it was there, because he had seen that look before. Not often, but enough times to recognize it. It was the look of someone who wasn't guessing, someone who knew something. And suddenly, this wasn't just another auction anymore. The bids slowed down after that. Not because the price was too high, but because something felt off, like the outcome had already shifted, but no one could explain how. The auctioneer called again. Going once, silence. Going twice, all eyes moved to the banker. This was the moment he always closed, the moment he always won. But this time, he didn't move. His grip on the paddle tightened slightly, then loosened. His eyes shifted, back to Caleb. And in that moment, he made a decision, not based on numbers, not based on risk, but on instinct, because something about that young mechanic didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a warning. And that's when he lowered his paddle. Slowly. The room didn't react immediately. It took a second, then another. Before it hit them, he wasn't bidding anymore. Sold. The word landed heavy, because for the first time in years, the banker had walked away. And no one understood why. Not yet. But they would. Because Caleb didn't rush. He didn't celebrate. Didn't try to prove anyone wrong. He just got to work. Quietly. Carefully. Observing. Studying the land the same way he studied broken machines. And for weeks, nothing happened. No crops. No change. No signs of success. People shook their heads. Said exactly what they expected to say. He made a mistake. But they weren't watching closely enough. Because change had already started. It just wasn't visible yet. The soil was shifting. Holding moisture longer. Reacting differently. Like it had been waiting for someone to understand it. And Caleb did. He didn't force it. Didn't rush it. He worked with it. And slowly, almost invisibly, life returned. First in small patches. Then wider. Then across the land people once called useless. By the end of the year, that same ranch was producing again. Not just crops, but belief. Because the story spread across towns, across counties, about the mechanic who saw something no one else did. And the banker? He came back, not to bid, not to take control, but to stand at the edge of that land and look, really look, and maybe, for the first time, wonder what would have happened if he hadn't stopped. Because sometimes, the biggest opportunities don't look valuable. They look broken, ignored, or already lost, until the right person sees them differently.